I'll be recording today's audio because Karen and Lenora won't make it. They have a class, so I'll be recording for them. The audio will be in our Google Classroom. Okay, let me just share the resources with you. So, how was your week? How are you feeling this evening? Everything okay? Yeah, lovely. So, we are gonna start, girls, by doing a collaborative activity we were supposed to do at the end of last week's lesson, but as it was the first class and it took us some time to log in and understand Google Classroom, we didn't have the time to do it. But this activity is part of last week's lesson, okay? I'm gonna share a link on the chat, and this link is gonna take us to a Google Jamboard. In this Google Jamboard, we are going to think about two aspects of our teaching, always keeping in mind the social and emotional development of our students, okay? So in this link, you will see a board like this one. And we are going to use blue post-its to tell me the challenging behavior you see in your classrooms, okay? So with blue post-its, you can tell me things that you've already experienced, things that challenged you, situations that you quite didn't know what to do or felt overwhelmed by. And in the yellow post-its on the other side, we are going to imagine what we would like to see in our students if we were to meet them in 15, 20 years. So that same student, I'm gonna add an example, a student of mine as an example here. So a challenging behavior that this particular student would show to me was refusal. Was really challenging because he would refuse anything. He would refuse and following the routine. He would refuse doing the activities. He would refuse joining the group or even talking. A life skill I would like to see if I were to meet him in 20, 15 years would be a good communicator. So, not only refusing to do things, but communicating the feelings, the needs, and likes and dislikes instead of only refusing and running away. So, now I would like you to think about two or three students that you might have or that you already had and add the post-its accordingly. This is just a warm up, okay? Can be a student of any age. If by any chance you haven't had any challenging behavior in your classrooms, you can add an example of something you heard of, something you've seen at a friend's classroom. It's up to you. You can describe the behavior if you want to. Mm-mm. All right. You can describe that. Like crying when making mistakes or not coping well with mistakes. we're going to stay like 2 or 3 more minutes in this activity and then we're gonna carry on. Not coping well with mistakes, beating friends compulsively. I've been there too many times. And if you could meet the beater in 15, 20 years, what traits of personality would you like to see? What kind of person, what kind of values would you like to see? So you can grab a coffee with that student and just remember those things that are back in the past. Wiser decisions and having a positive approach towards challenges. All right, this was just a warm up, okay, girls? And just a warm up for us to always keep in mind that when we are dealing with social and emotional learning skills, we are looking at the future of our students. So, what we see daily in a classroom tends to blur our view of the future because it's right there in front of us every single day, and that behavior um, easily becomes a barrier for us to look at that student beyond the behavior. Okay, so whenever we talk about social and emotional development, we are always looking at life skills, at those life skills. So when we see that student that is beating friends compulsively all the time, when you look at that, you do not see an aggressive child, but you will start seeing a student that needs to develop wisdom and the ability of making better decisions. And you will be part of that, as well as you see Talita in your art lessons, and someone who does not cope well with mistakes, you won't not only look at this lack of coping skills, but you will see that in the future that child can be someone who values her own failures but also values her own talents, the strengths and the weaknesses. So that was just a warm up for us. Okay? And so now we can officially start um, the part two of our module one. So we have 5 modules in this course. Each one of them is divided into 2 lessons. So today is the last module of When Brains Meet Inside the Classroom. What are the social and emotional skills, biological approach to teacher and student bond? This is what we are going to talk about today. You had an article to read for today, and did you have time to take a look at it? How was that for you? Yes? Okay. So, what we can do now is to take some 5 minutes to highlight some main points of the article, okay? Some main things that you, Talita, and you, Giovanna, noticed about this study, about how the positive discipline approach was developed in the study, and obviously the results, the outcomes of the approach. So, who would like to share first? All right. All right. Yeah, in general. Mhm. Yeah, precisely. This is the idea of the positive discipline classroom meetings, which we will learn on our practical module, and also you will test the classroom meetings. Yeah, so you are going to use it and report how it's been with your group. But that's the idea. It's to talk to students horizontally. So we are all on the same boat. If there's a problem in this boat, it's everyone's problem. It's not only the captain's problem. Everyone can contribute because we are on the boat. And if the boat sinks, we all die together. So we are all responsible for keeping the boat moving. So that's the main idea. All right. And what about you, Giovanna? Yeah. All right, thank you, Giovanna. And your teaching experience is great for you and value your teaching experience. I had a coordinator who used to tell us that some people have 20 years of teaching experience, but they actually have only one because they taught something at their first year of teaching. That thing worked, and they kept teaching the very same thing 20 times. So they only have 1 year of teaching experience. So if you were doing different things and looking for ways of supporting your students for 3, 4 years, you were already ahead of lots of teachers. All right, so value your experience. All right, girls, so let's get started. The big question of today's lesson is what are the social and emotional skills? Because when we talk about them, it's like they are this broad concept that no one actually knows what they mean. They just know they are important, but what are they? And so here, I brought the social and emotional skills for you. Here they are. And this concept of social and emotional skills was firstly developed by the Collaborative for Academic Social and Emotional Learning Association, the CASO, and this is internationally used. It's in our Brazilian BNCC, it's in other countries, Common Core, and it's a way of looking at the relationship, the abilities, relationships in a more concise way. So they came up with 5 names, 5 terminologies for 5 types of skills. But inside those skills, we have several competencies and we have several abilities that they will experience and practice in the classroom. Okay? So the social and emotional skills, when I say that big name for you, I am imagining that you are listening self awareness, self management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and social awareness. those are the five social and emotional skills that the KSL Association and teachers all over the globe decided that are important to cause a positive impact and in those spheres. So in a classroom, in a school, and when they are with families and caregivers, and ultimately in their communities. All right. Today we are gonna look at each of them. We are going to use an activity. You might know that. And I see, I think, I wonder. Are you familiar with it? Have you ever heard of it? I see, I think, I wonder is a visible thinking routine. Have you ever heard something about visible thinking? Visible thinking are some strategies that they were developed by a team of researchers at Harvard School of Education. And those strategies help people to better visualize their learning. And the visible thinking routines, they can be used for professional development courses as we're doing. We can also use them with students. And they are really interesting and ways of approaching a topic. So what we're gonna do is that we are gonna look at all the pieces of this social and emotional learning circle. And for each piece that we look at, I want you to categorize your thinking into things you see. So, evidence that you've seen in the classroom, evidence that you see in your community that skill is important. And secondly, in things that you think about that topic, and ultimately, wonders, ideas, or questions that you might have. If you have a paper with you, you might want to write, like, I see a big bubble. I think another bubble, and I wonder a third bubble. And as we go through the topics, you can put all your C's in the same bubble, all your thoughts, all of your thinking in the second bubble, and all of your wonders at the end. Okay? Do you have questions? Did you understand? Yeah, we are going one by one. We are going to look at that the whole circle, little by little, and we are going to reflect on all of its parts. Okay, ready? Let's go. First, let's look at the outside area of the circle. It says communities, aligned learning opportunities. So when you think about social and emotional skills, what outcomes do you see in communities? The presence of social and emotional skills or the lack of them? The presence of aligned learning opportunities or the lack of them? What things do you see? What do you think? And do you have any wonders about it? You might not have the see and think and wonder for all of them. Okay, so maybe you just look at that element now and you just have a thought or just an evidence or maybe just a wonder, and that's okay as long as you share whatever you have with us. Okay, so we are thinking about the outside area of the circle, the community. As soon as you're ready to share, you can just open your mic. All right. Any ideas you'd like to share? A thought or an evidence that you see of the SALs in a community? Like think about the community you teach at, the country, the neighborhood. Carry on. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting how you mentioned, Talita, the importance of identifying social um, a social issue, a social problem in the community, to use this problem as a prompt to develop the social and emotional skills themselves. So that was really interesting. What about you, Giovanna? Yeah. Yeah, and also to picture themselves as adults in a society, decisions and roles they will have to play in it. It's wonderful that your wonders are all related to the future. This means it will impact their future. If you're already planning for it, it will certainly happen. Let's look, let's go inside, okay? Let's go a little deeper now. Families and caregivers. When we take into consideration the families and caregivers of our students, do we see authentic partnerships? Do you think authentic partnerships are essential? And how important their role is? So take a minute to think or see or share your wonders about this layer now, families and caregivers. Okay? As soon as you are ready, feel free to open your mics and share. All right, girls. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because of the input they had as children, right? Yeah, that's really interesting that when honesty is the motto of the relationship, and they come to school and they come to this community, the academic community, with a different background, with different behavior strategies and ways to relate to each other. Wonderful. Thank you, Giovanna. What about you, Talita? So when we bring the parents and we bring the family history inside the school, this also helps fostering the social and emotional skills. I work at a school that does the same. Where before the pandemic, we used to have big international days for all the families with several cultures, and it was a very enriching moment. So let's go deeper into the circle. Now we are looking at schools, our habitat, school wide culture, practices, and policies. How does that impact the development of social and emotional skills? The school culture, the practices, and the policies. Okay, take a moment to think and wonder about it or share things you've seen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 We've been seeing all sorts of movements, even against schools and curriculum, and this might change in the future. And unfortunately, it's not under our control as teachers. But it's really interesting how you related, Giovanna, how similar the family background and the school background and how similarly they influence the social and emotional development of the students because they are coming in and out of both environments. They are coming in and out of home, in and out of the school. And those will be the two main environments that will have an influence on this development, on social and emotional development. And what about you, Talita? Okay.
every month we award them with like a piece of paper saying they exceeded, they were very good at that skill. So, for example, they're like independent endeavor, group interaction. So then, for example, if this month it's group interaction, and then they know that all the teachers are looking for that sort of behavior. So we are able to assess like, oh, that student, he worked really well in groups, he helped others. So it's really nice for them to understand that we are looking for those characteristics as well. So we are in a, we not only see them but we award them. So it's like good to have those skills, something like that.
Yeah, precisely, Talita. Now, girls, we are going deeper into the system. And as we go deeper into the system, we got closer to things that are under our control. Isn't that amazing? Because we cannot control the community or even what happens at home. At school, sometimes we can control, sometimes we cannot control what's happening in the school policy and practices and school management. But in the classroom, that's our home. That's our second home, right? So, in the classrooms, and do you see, have you experienced an SAL instruction, explicitly teaching and talking about social and emotional skills? Have you ever experienced that? And if so, and how was it? And if you haven't, why do you think this has never happened to you? And about the classroom climate, the overall atmosphere of how pupils in that classroom relate to one another. So take a moment to ponder about those topics, okay, concerning the classroom. Your thoughts, things you've seen, or wonders you have about classroom. Okay. Ready to share, girls? Yes.
Okay, so as I said before, we have the child protection classes. So we tell them about like being safe, online and offline as well, like in the real world. We talk about bullying and relationship with parents, with the students, and we give them a chance to talk about their feelings and talk about their experiences. So I noticed that when we're doing it, because sometimes, because it's only Friday, so sometimes if there's a field trip or a holiday, then we end up not having the class. And I feel like whenever we're having those classes, their behaviors, the behavior changes. So it's really nice to be able to do that, and I would love to have more of it, like more like the file sent about the fifth graders, like something more like that, aimed at more social and emotional skills.
Yeah, we'll learn on our practical modules and the strategies and activities you can do right away with your group. And it's really interesting how you highlighted, Talita, the impact on their behavior. So the more explicit the instruction was, the better the behavior got. Is that it? Yeah. So that's really lovely and really interesting because we shouldn't take social and emotional learning for granted. We shouldn't consider it as something that will happen eventually, that we shouldn't talk about it because when we talk about it, we are forcing students to reflect and they do not want to. It's the opposite. So the more we show, the more explicit the instruction is, the language is, the moment, that moment in the routine, like you said, once a week on Fridays, the better the behavior will get because they will get this organized instructions and this organized support concerning their social and emotional development. What about you, Giovanna?
I'm working on preschool center near my house, and I always see the teachers, the main teachers. I only work as an English teacher for them, so all toddlers, and I always see them having this circle time, and of course, I have had some ESL trainings, and we know this is important, right? But it's more emphasized in a pedagogical environment, right?
Yeah.
So the toddlers, they need to every day sit down and talk to the teacher about what happened to this in the week and how do they feel and how are they feeling today, and then they stamp the learning station. I don't know
Hmm.
how to call it, but they have it something daily to register,
To
right?
register their mood, their behavior, like a chart. So this
Yes,
consistency of the social and emotional, let's say a curriculum, social and emotional moments, you see it. It's something easier to happen when you are the lead teacher, and it's harder to happen when you are a specialist and you do not have much time, right? And now, girls, we are going to look at the five skills themselves. So, first in blue, we were looking at the areas, the forces that influence the skills themselves. Okay. And those skills are the ones inside our students' head. So, pick one. We have five there. Pick one that you've already seen happening in your classroom that you have experience about, or pick one that you have wonders and questions how it would look like. And we will go further on that. I'm going to mention those five skills over and over again throughout the course for you. So this won't be the last time you see them. But take a minute or two to do your see, think, wonder. Now thinking about the five skills, which are self management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, social awareness, and self awareness.
we should take only one or all of them.
You can pick only one. All right.
I already have one.
Okay. Ready to share?
Yes, because it was related to our last class. I had a student, as I work with toddlers, like they are 3 and 4 years old, and they beat compulsively,
Okay.
right? Because they are learning social awareness, right? And trying to ask, oh, I was trying to ask, oh, so does your mom beat you? Oh, no. So why would you beat your friend? Your friend would be sad, as well as you would be if your mother beat you, right? Beats you. And then I had another student. I had the same questions for him, and then I had to change the speech because he said, "Yes, my mother beats me," right? So we have some fights. So and then I got a shock and understood. Okay, so this child is going to understand that this is love, right? This is a way that he should behave, and both children were beating everyone, but you could solve it in different ways.
With different, they were beating, let's say, with different purposes. One
Yes,
was beating because the mom would beat him at home and he would understand that beating is okay.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Oh, I was just
Yes, yeah. And the other would be because maybe he saw the other kid doing it and resorted to the same attitude like a mirror. He's beating. I don't know what beating is, but I'll do the same because it looks like something useful to do to survive in this environment. Remember the surviving brain that we learned about last class? So I've already experienced that same thing with toddlers, especially with beating, and they also bite at the age. So beating and biting happen all the time, and it's really important to focus on this social awareness and skill on the things that are acceptable and the things that are unacceptable. Things that we can do to other people socially and things we cannot do to other people socially, even if someone does this at home. Like in this case, that the boy said that the mom would beat him. So even if it happens at home, then it's a whole different story to talk to the parent and understand what's going on there. All right. What about you, Talita? What was your choice?
I think the self awareness and self management, because I saw something that was quite interesting to witness. I had a student that he got into he's a teenager, so he got into a motorbike accident on the way to school. So he was late for his first class, and the math teacher she takes it very personally when students are late. So she just told him off. When he came into my class, he was late because he was getting some bandages and stuff. But I was worried about him because I didn't know where he was. So when he came into my room, I was like, "Why are you late? What happened?" So he started like lashing at me. He's like, he was angry about everything that happened. And then I asked him, "Are you really mad at me?" And then he was able to go like, "Okay, no, sorry, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad because of this, this, and this." So I thought it was really interesting to see that he was able to recognize what he was actually mad about and apologize for lashing out at me. So I thought that was really cool because normally students they just lash out and they don't know what they're angry about.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this story you shared is that how your question to him shaped the whole direction of this story. So this could have ended completely different if it weren't for your position as a teacher, as the adult, there saying, I see you are mad, but I believe it has nothing to do with me personally, even though I'm here to hear you and help you. Okay, so again, and remember that last week we talked about connection before the correction. When we get our brains, our prefrontal cortex back into leading the behavior, we activate the mirror neurons, and those neurons they work like mirrors, and they are inside our students' brain, and we intend to get this kind of response that Talita shared. All right. Now, guys, how would you assess those skills in your classroom? This clear vision of what's going on, not taking things personally. Precisely, Giovanna. Let's think of those five skills now, and how can we assess what evidence do we see that our students are in fact developing self management, self awareness, social awareness, responsible decision making. And what evidence do we see? How can we assess? How can we communicate to our students that they are going from one point to the other? Or if you do not know anything about it, you can share that as well. I wouldn't know where to start from.
Yeah, I think for me it's very hard to assess like to talk about it specifically because since I'm a specialist teacher, I teach from 5 year olds until the seniors. So each class has a different need, they have different skills. I work a lot with the younger kids because sometimes I only have 1 year with the older kids. So do my best with them, but the younger ones are the one that I'm kind of like experimenting with, you know. And so I really like the younger kids for that reason. I feel like, for example, with the mistake thing, I put on my board. I made like a painting that says like in art there are no mistakes, only opportunities for creativity. And then I talked a lot about making mistakes and how that's a good thing, you know, all of that. And the girl that always cries when she makes mistakes, when she's crying, everyone else just goes around her and go like, "Hey, well, you maybe you can put a sun here. Maybe you can do like a mountain." And so they're like helping her cope with the mistakes. So I already see like with the younger kids, they're getting those skills really well.
Yeah, so your assessment would be the change of attitude in the whole group towards this friend that has the issue of crying when she makes a mistake. So their social attitude in a classroom community would be your data for assessing that what you are doing is actually working. And that was my point when I asked you girls those two questions. How would you assess? What evidence would you see? Because when we are talking about applying a social and emotional curriculum, the assessment is lays on the daily relationships. So when we see a change happening day by day, this is how we can assess their progress. They won't take a test, they won't get a score, they won't get more stars on a behavior chart or less stars or less punishments, but we will see a genuine change on how they act. All right?
This is very hard for me to practice because we are surrounded by this quantity in behaviorism, right?
Yes.
Like there are a lot of charts to stars. Oh, if you do this, I'll give you a sticker. Or oh, if you do that, like it's frustrating when you can't run away from it. And I think that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I know. And we will learn next week on Module 2 the difference between praising and encouragement and how we can turn our praising system because most of the schools they work around a praising system how we can as teachers turn this into encouragement into things that will help the student reflect and be responsible for that achievement because if you get it right and I give you a golden star, I am being responsible for your achievement. I am the judge who says whether this was achieved or not achieved. But if we share the responsibility with them, and it's okay if you have golden stickers bought by the school and you have to use them. I've been there. We have to use the resource because that was money in the resource and you need to use it. Okay, but that would be a whole different use of the resource. So you will monitor your own behavior. And when you feel you are improving and ready, you can add up the golden stickers to yourself as reminders of your progress. But it's on your responsibility. It's something you will handle. And this takes us to developing one of the five social and emotional skills, which is self management, managing how you are acting. But we will learn in details next week when we talk about praising and encouragement. Okay? Now, girls, we are going to take a quick break, like 5 minutes, and for us to take some water, go to the toilet, and at 26, we'll be back. All right? So I see you soon.